If your service isn't clearly defined, no system you add will actually fix it. And that's why your work gets done, but never the same way twice. One project runs clean, another takes three extra steps, and a third pulls you back in halfway through just to keep it on track. Nothing's failing, but nothing feels steady. Most owners think this is an execution problem. It's not, it's a design problem. If your projects get completed, but not the same way twice, if your team has SOPs, but still pull you back in to interpret the work, if you added systems, people, or tools, but delivery still feels inconsistent, this is exactly what's breaking consistency in how your service gets delivered. Now, over the past few weeks, I've noticed an uptick in owners who are talking about the same two issues that keep coming up across different service businesses. The first one is hiring friction. Now, this has been going on for a long time. It goes all the way back to right after COVID went through, and it was starting to open back up. Food service locations, especially, were having a difficult time hiring people. They began increasing the pay that had been around $9 or $10 around here in Indiana, and it got up to 16 and even $17 an hour, which was a ridiculous amount of money for all the things that were happening, especially since most of the time automation was beginning to kick in. And so this creates a kind of a hiring crisis talking point where we have a couple of things that come in contact with each other. One of them is low effort and low skill talent pools. Recently, a lot of these owners have been talking about the basic reliability, the work ethic, and the execution skills that have dropped precipitously. Many candidates over rely on tools like AI and they struggle with consistent delivery. When it comes into your business, that's not a really good thing. And to make it worse, there's a lot of massive rework that's going on, missed deadlines, poor client facing quality. And the owners describe the bar of hiring as disappointingly low. Now, this leads to a skills and expectations mismatch. A lot of employers want 1 to 3 years of experience, especially in professional services, where you have very specific backgrounds that are necessary. But the candidates that people are getting are either lacking in technical depth, cultural fit, or just practical judgment. They have no experience coming into the position, and the owners are looking at this going, how do I now hire? And so a tiny percentage of people can pass screening now. And that means that it's a long time to fill positions, especially during busy seasons. And the owner and HR are wasting huge amounts of time on screening. That means that the growth is going to stall because the capacity can't be added reliably. Now, most fixes for this are still tactical. People are going to post more jobs, they're going to pay more, and they're going to screen harder, rather than structural, where we're talking about a cultural overhaul, where capacity models work beyond full time hires, or you start productizing your work to need fewer people. Now, that's something that I deal with every day. A lot of companies are looking at this and saying, maybe I can productize my work. I don't know, but they're not really prepared for it. Now, a lot of firms pull ahead because they focused more on retention rather than becoming a destination for burned out talent or just filling seats. And the second thing that people are talking about, something I feel intimately, is pricing pressure. And it's something of a stacking problem. One problem stacks on top of another. First of all, for service business, you have a broken hourly and billable hour model. And I work with professional services all the time, trying to get them to either a fixed fee or a value based model. And what happens is that time and materials or hourly billing, it incentivizes inefficiency. People pad their timelines, and you get misaligned incentives where firms get paid for effort and not for results. And what this results in is the clients going the other direction where they get nickel and dimed on their invoices and they resist any rate increases. They demand faster and cheaper delivery and they increasingly shop around. Now, what this means for the service business is that projects drag on with ultimately increasing and excessive scope creep. The other thing that happens is resistance to change in pricing mindsets. Now, many firms and professionals are deeply habituated to hourly billing as the safe or professional standard. And they have ultimately a slow adoption of new models that lead to lost market share, especially to the innovators. We're talking about flat fee AI native firms or outcome based consultants. That's where I sit, is the outcome based. And internal teams will push back on new pricing because they're afraid that they're going to have to actually squeeze down and get really clear on what it is that they're doing. And as we talked about before with the hiring problem, you're not always getting the best people that are coming into your company from an experience point of view. So they go with what they know. Ultimately, the client pushes back on predictability and perceived value. Remember, they're facing their own budget pressures and they want certainty from you. They aren't going to accept the, well, it'll take as long as it takes kind of pricing. Nobody cares about that anymore. This generates longer sales cycles, lost deals to lower price competitors, a lot of in house solutions, and constant negotiations and fee discounts eroding profitability. Now, with the in house solution problem, what's going on is a lot of people are relying on ChatGPT and Grok and a lot of the AI functions to give them new ideas. Those ideas are not grounded necessarily in experience. They're grounded in what the language contains, and that's not always experience based. I work in AI all the time. It works as a great coworker to what I'm doing. It's faster, but not necessarily better. And certainly it has some problems with, let's call it truth. And with the in house solutions, people get the mistaken view that it's cheaper. But when you have to redo it over and over and over again, are you really getting it for the best price? Or could you have done it the first or even the second time with an outside source who actually has experience doing what you're doing? Yes, they're more expensive. Yes, you're already paying your people. But a lot of times, and what I find going into my clients is that they're looking for the expertise to drive their own team. And I get it. That's why they're going to AI. It seems cheaper. Not always. If you find an outside consultant who's using AI to generate their ideas, that can be to the advantage as long as it goes through the consultant's expertise. If it doesn't, and you just have them relying on AI, you could have done it yourself. Ultimately, come to the conclusion that everyone is using AI. The key is, are they using it just for the ideas and running it through experience? Or are they using it as the ideas and dropping it into your business to find the experience? Now, those sound like two completely different problems, but they are connected. And when you step back and look at them together, they point to the same thing underneath: unclear work expectations. Now, none of that is wrong, but if the work itself is unclear, any fix won't create consistency. It will just organize the inconsistency. What I found is that most service businesses were never actually designed. They were built or copied over time. Each new client added variation, and each project added a new way of doing things. Each owner you worked for ran their business in a different way, and you've learned to copy it. And the owner learns by doing. The team can't, however. And all too often, the owner can just see what needs to happen while the team needs interpretation. A system can only repeat what's already been defined. If the offer is unclear, the system can't clarify it. If the outcome is unclear, the team can't deliver it consistently. And as I've mentioned before, systems scale whatever the work already is like, whether that's good or bad. Now, there are a few clear signs this is happening. First, every project starts with too much thinking. Even when the work is similar, the approach changes. Second, the team needs you to make decisions that should have already been built into the model, and that keeps you in the middle. Third, pricing and delivery don't reinforce each other. The client buys one thing, the team delivers another, and you, the owner, have to fill the gap. That's why this week's framework fix is the service clarity diagnostic. It simply measures whether your service is defined enough to scale or if it will still be dependent on interpretation. Systems don't create clarity, they depend on it, and they fail when they're asked to create clarity that doesn't exist. So before adding another tool, another hire, or another layer of process, ask yourself a better question. Is the service I'm hiring for clear enough that someone can deliver it without becoming me? If that sounds familiar, take the service clarity diagnostic. It will show you whether your service is clear enough to scale or whether the next move is to define the work before you try to systemize it. The link will be down in the description. For the Entrepreneur Strategic Briefing, I'm Randy Bridges. I'll see you back here next week.